Competition, the kind of interaction in which both organisms harm each other. The symbolic representation is minus and minus. It means both organisms are harmed more or less. According to the Darwin, the interspecific competition is a potent force in organic evolution or development of the species. Interspecific competition is a kind of competition occur between the organisms of different species. According to Darwin, it is a potent force. It means due to the interspecific competition only, the organism need to develop or modified or adapt to their environment, and in this condition the speciation occur, or we can say development of new species carried out. And that's why according to Darwin, interspecific competition is a potent force in organic evolution, that is formation or development of species. It is generally believed that the competition occur when closely related species compete for the same resource that are limiting. Resources are limiting. It means the resources itself limit or regulate organisms of the species in the habitat. But this is not entirely true, because in many cases totally unrelated species could also compete for the same resource. We have the examples which convince us that the unrelated species can also compete. Not necessarily the related species only compete with each other. Example, in some shallow South American lakes, visiting flamingos and resident fishes compete for their common food. This is zooplankton in the lake. Zooplankton are the unicellular animals which float on the surface of the water in the lake, and flamingo and fish both depend on this zooplankton for their food requirement. So competition occur between these two organisms. One is flamingo and other one is the fish. So unrelated species compete with each other. The another aspect of competition is that if the resources are not limiting, even though the competition occur, it is here in this condition it is called interference competition. That means the feeding efficiency of one species might be reduced due to the interfering and inhibitory presence of the other species, even if resources, that is food and space, are abundant. This aspect explains that if the resources are abundant in large amount, even though the competition is possible. Here we clear the four aspects of regarding the competition. It means the related species may compete, unrelated species may also compete. If resources are limited, then also competition occur, and resources are abundant, not limiting or not less in number, even though the competition is possible. So these are the four different aspects of competition. Competition is the best defined as the process in which the fitness of one species is significantly lower in the presence of another species. That is competition. Here the word fitness of one species is nothing but it is the efficiency of organism to get food or to get the space. The efficiency is explained here in the term of fitness. Fitness of species is measured in the terms of its R, that is small r, the intrinsic rate of increase. It's nothing but in short we can say it's a growth rate of the organism. We can understand the same definition with the help of this intrinsic rate of increase, or simply growth rate. We can say the competition is a process in which the growth rate of one species is significantly lower in the presence of another species. We can say growth rate is reduced in the presence of other species or other organism. It is considered as a competition. Gauss and other ecologists demonstrate in the laboratory experiment that when resources are limited, the competitively superior species will eventually eliminate the other species. It means the more powerful species remove the less powerful or weak species. For an example, the Abingdon tortoise in Galapagos Island became extinct within decades after goats were introduced on the island. So here are the two different species, that is Abingdon tortoise and the goats. This is due to the greater browsing efficiency of the goats. So obviously the goat are more efficient to get the leaves of the plant, that is browsing. And that's why the abandoned tortoise couldn't get adequate amount of food, and so it is eliminated. Here the gods were more superior. The resources were also limited, and due to this only the abandoned tortoise become extinct from the island. Connell's field experiment on the rocky sea coast in Scotland. The larger and competitively superior barnacle Belanus dominates the intertidal area and excludes the smaller barnacle Cathamelus from that zone. So one species remove the other species when the resources are limited. Another concept of competition is the competitive release. What it means? A species whose distribution is restricted to a small geographical area because of the presence of a competitively superior species is found to expand its distributional range dramatically when the competing species is experimentally removed. We can say in a Gir forest, in the core region in the center, the lions are found. So the goat, cow like animals never enter in that zone. Then they have the restricted zone for the grazing. But if we remove that lion from that Gir region, that we cannot do, it is an just example. But if we remove the lion from that core zone or core region, that is center of the Gir forest, that cow and goats can easily enter into that region for the grazing. So we can say here it is a competitive release of goat and cows, simply as the superior species lion is removed from that region. So this way we can understand the competitive release concept. The another concept is the Gauss competitive exclusion principle. What it states? If we say two closely related species competing for the same resource cannot coexist indefinitely, and the competitively inferior one will be eliminated eventually. Two closely related species competing for the same resource cannot coexist indefinitely. This may be true if resources are limiting but not otherwise. For example, if we talk about the lion and the tiger, closely related species, both are carnivorous, depend on the same kind of animals in the specific region of the forest. So both have the same target prey for the food requirement. This principle states that the lion and tiger, which are closely related species competing for the same resource, cannot coexist indefinitely, and the competitively inferior one will be eliminated eventually. Is it true? Due to presence of lion, the tigers move away from that region? It may be true if the resources are limiting, but not otherwise. If the resources are in abundant amount or large amount of animals are found, then both lion and tiger can get their enough food and satisfy that food requirement, even though they live in the same habitat or same region. So we clearly opposes this Gauss competitive exclusion principle. In fact, the more recent studies do not support this. They point out that species facing competition might evolve mechanisms that promote coexistence rather than exclusion. Many of the time, the organism or the animals of the different species show coexistence rather than exclusion. As I told earlier, the lion and tiger both can live in the same jungle. That is coexistence. And this is called resource partitioning. If two species compete for the same resource, they could avoid competition by choosing, for instance, different times for feeding or different foraging patterns. foraging patterns means the pattern of searching food. MacArthur, ecologists, showed that five closely related species of warblers, this is a small bird, living on the same tree, were able to avoid competition and coexist due to the behavioral difference in their foraging activities. Warblers are the small birds, live on the same tree, but five different types of warblers are found on the same tree, but they do not compete with each other as they show resource partitioning. They change their foraging pattern and the time of foraging as well. It means some warblers forage the food in the early morning, some in the noon, another in the night. This way, they show the different foraging activities. Okay, some of that forage the food near the small plants. They depend on the insects. Some depends on the pollen of the plants, and this way they change their target food and the pattern as well site of searching food, and this way they can live together, and this is coexistence.